Imagine conquering one of the largest empires the ancient world had ever seen. Before the age of 33, Alexander the Great had defeated kings, crossed deserts, marched through Persia, and reached the edges of India. But then, in Babylon, something happened that even Alexander could not defeat. He suddenly became sick. His condition grew worse day after day, and within roughly 2 weeks, the greatest conqueror of his age was dead. But what actually killed him? A disease? A complication from his years of campaigning? Or was Alexander poisoned? More than 2,000 years later, we still don't have a definitive answer. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the Kingdom of Macedon. His father, Philip II, had built a powerful military kingdom in Greece. When Philip was assassinated in 336 BC, Alexander became king. He was only 20 years old. Within a few years, Alexander had defeated the Persian Empire and taken control of enormous territories stretching across the eastern Mediterranean and into Asia. He crossed mountains, deserts, and rivers with his armies. He fought major battles against Persian kings, and eventually he reached the Indian subcontinent. But Alexander wasn't finished. He wanted to keep expanding. Then his exhausted soldiers refused to go farther. Alexander turned back and eventually returned to Babylon. He would never leave. In 323 BC, Alexander arrived in Babylon. It was one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. Alexander had enormous plans. He was preparing new military campaigns. He was also planning construction projects, naval expeditions, and further expansion. But soon after arriving, Alexander became ill. Ancient accounts describe a fever that grew progressively worse. At first, he could still move around, but day after day, his strength declined. The illness continued for around 12 days. And then something frightening happened. Alexander could no longer walk. His condition deteriorated rapidly. Ancient writers describe Alexander lying in his palace as his generals gathered around him. His fever continued. He became increasingly weak. Eventually, he could barely speak. His soldiers reportedly gathered outside the palace, wanting to see their king one last time. According to later accounts, Alexander was carried so his troops could pass by him. The man who had once led armies across continents was now unable to stand. And then came one of the strangest details in the ancient accounts. Alexander's body reportedly remained apparently intact for a period after his death. Some later writers interpreted this as evidence that he had not actually died immediately. But this detail is difficult to verify and may belong partly to later tradition. The exact sequence of his final hours remains uncertain, and this is where the murder mystery begins. One tradition claimed that Alexander had been poisoned. Later stories suggested that powerful people around him may have wanted him dead. The suspects included political rivals and members of his own circle. Some versions even connected the conspiracy to Antipater, one of Alexander's most powerful officials. But there is a major problem. The earliest surviving traditions are not straightforward proof of assassination. Another historical tradition, associated with the royal diary, describes a progressive illness rather than a sudden poisoning. Modern researchers have therefore treated the poisoning theory with caution. One toxicology study argued that a plant poison called white hellebore could theoretically produce symptoms resembling Alexander's illness. But that is a hypothesis, not evidence that Alexander was actually poisoned. So what really killed? Several medical explanations have been proposed. One is malaria, which was present in the region. Another is typhoid fever. Some researchers have argued that the pattern of Alexander's fever and decline fits typhoid particularly well. Another possibility is acute pancreatitis, potentially connected to heavy alcohol consumption. Other researchers have proposed neurological or infectious diseases. There is even a hypothesis involving West Nile virus. The problem is that we don't have Alexander's body available for modern testing, and the ancient sources were written long after his death or rely on earlier accounts that no longer survive independently. So historians and medical researchers are trying to reconstruct a diagnosis from a few ancient descriptions. It's like solving a medical mystery with evidence that is more than 2,000 years old. Perhaps the most important clue is the timeline. Alexander did not simply collapse and die instantly. The surviving traditions describe a prolonged illness lasting roughly 2 weeks. That makes some poisoning theories less convincing, although it does not absolutely rule poisoning out. Several modern medical analyses have favored infectious disease, particularly typhoid, while other researchers have proposed different explanations. The uncomfortable truth is, we simply don't know. Alexander the Great spent his life conquering kingdoms, but in Babylon, his greatest enemy may have been something he couldn't see: a disease, a medical complication, or perhaps something more deliberate. His empire would soon be divided among his generals. His body would become part of another mystery, and the question of what killed Alexander the Great would survive for more than 2,000 years. The conqueror disappeared, but the mystery never did.